Hello and God bless you. Well, today we will be talking about Jesus healing the sick. In all these stories in the gospel, there's quite a bit of healing that Jesus does for sick, healing the blind, healing lepers, just all manner of sick. And I always kind of thought about something. A lot of the people, we don't get an account of, them being questioned too much. It's like people knew that they were sick and that they're not no more. And this will be a little bit of a long video, but we're going to show you some 3 stories in the Gospels where no one really got questions very thoroughly. Then our main one is going to be a little long. It's just going to show us, a more in-depth questioning of the healing. So, hope y'all enjoy it. God bless y'all, and we'll get on with it. Our first story of Jesus healing somebody is going to be found in John chapter 5. And here in verse 5 it says, "A certain man was there who had an infirmity of 38 years. And when Jesus saw him lie, he knew that he had been now a long time in that case. And he said unto him, Wilt thou be made whole? And the impotent man answered him, Sir, I have no man, when the water is troubled, to put me into the pool. But while I am coming, another steps down before me. And Jesus saith unto him, Rise, take up thy bed, and walk. And immediately the man was made whole, and took up his bed and walked. And on the same day was the Sabbath. And the Jews therefore said unto him that was cursed, It is the Sabbath day, it is not lawful for thee to carry thy bed. And he answered them, He that made me whole, the same said unto me, Take up thy bed and walk. And they asked him, What man is that which saith unto thee, Take up thy bed and walk? And he that was healed was not who it was, for Jesus had conveyed himself away, and the multitude being in that place. Afterwards Jesus findeth him in the temple, and said unto him, Behold, thou art made whole. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come unto thee. And the man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus which had made him whole. Therefore did the Jews persecute Jesus and sought to slay him, because he had done these things on the Sabbath day. So that part is kind of interesting, just because, they had a problem with Jesus healing because it was a Sabbath. And, but they didn't really question too much. So, I'm sure they had seen him, all the time, waiting for the waters to be troubled in the pool. So they knew that he was, disabled. But they just wanted to know who had done it so they could try to kill Jesus. And here in our second story, we're going to be in Luke 17. This is kind of one of my favorite stories. It's about the 10 lepers that Jesus heals. And we'll start here in verse 12. And he entered into a certain village, and there met him 10 men that were lepers, which stood afar off. And they lifted up their voices and said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And when he saw them, he said unto them, Go show thyself unto the priest. And it came to pass, as they went, they were cleansed. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back and with a loud voice glorified God. And he fell down on his face at his feet, giving him thanks. And he was a Samaritan. And Jesus answering him said, Were there not 10 cleansed? But where are the 9? There are not found that return to give glory to God, save this stranger. And he said unto him, Arise, go thy way, thy faith has made thee whole. So what I really think is neat about that story is, we don't get a follow-up of, what happens with the 9, what, about going to the priest and what the priests have to say about it or anything, but this one guy, because, I understand leprosy, your like, body parts, you have like a finger missing or something like that. So these guys, the leprosy stopped, but this guy who came back, everything that had fell off or whatever was restored to him. Got his fingers back and whatever it may be. That's just the way I understand how leprosy does. But I just thought that was another neat story. And now we're going to continue on with story number 3. Here in Matthew 9, where Jesus heals 2 blind men. And here in verse 27 it says, And when Jesus departed thence, 2 blind men following him, crying and saying, Thou Son of David, have mercy on us. And when he was come into the house, the blind men came to him, and Jesus saith unto them, Believe ye that I am able to do this? And they said unto him, Yea, Lord. Then touched he their eyes, saying, According to your faith be it unto you. And their eyes were open, and Jesus straightway charged them, saying, See that no man know it. But they, when they were departed, spread abroad his fame in all that country. See, in all three of these stories, we can just assume by the information we're given that the people all around knew that these people had these disabilities. We don't really get too much of a questioning into it from what's given to us in the scriptures. But here in our main verse that we're going to go into, we're going to see that we get some questions about whether this person was actually handicapped to begin with. Here in John chapter 9, pretty much this entire chapter has to do with this blind man that Jesus heals. And starting off here, kind of setting it up, here in verse 1, it says, And as Jesus passed by, he saw a man which was blind from his birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus answered, Neither hath this man sinned nor his parents, but that the work of God should be made manifest in him. Now we're going to skip down a little bit, and it says, and here in verse 6, When he had thus spoken, he spat on the ground and made clay of the spittle, and he anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay, and said unto him, Go and wash in the pool of Siloam, which is to be interpreted sent. And he went his way, therefore, and washed, and came seeing. The neighbors, therefore, and they which before had seen him, that he was blind, said, Is not this he that sat and begged? Some said, It is he. Others said, He is like him. But he said, I am he. Therefore said they unto him, How were thine eyes opened? And he answered and said, A man that is called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes, and said unto me, Go to the pool of Siloam and wash. And I went and washed, and I received my sight. Then said they unto him, Where is he? And he said, I know not. And he brought him to the Pharisees, him that was aforetime blind, as it was the Sabbath day, when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. Now we're getting down here to where once again, the Jews were upset that Jesus did it on the Sabbath day, healed this man. But also, we're going to see here that they kind of question if he's really blind. Then again, the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. And he said unto them, He put clay upon my eyes, and I washed and do see. Therefore said the Pharisees, some of the Pharisees, This man is not of God, because he keepeth not the Sabbath day. Others said, How can a man that is a sinner do such miracles? And there was a division among them. They said unto the blind man again, What sayest thou of him that he hath opened thine eyes? And he said, He is a prophet. But the Jews did not believe concerning him that he had been blind and received his sight, until they called the parents of him that had received his sight. And they asked them, saying, Is this your son, who ye say was born blind, and how doeth he see? And his parents answered them and said, We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind, but by what means he now sees we know not, or who hath opened his eyes we know not. He is of our age. Ask him, and he shall speak for himself. So I like that part right there, just because, at first they're talking about the Jews didn't like that Jesus on the Sabbath. Then they questioned if he's ever blind, so they asked his parents. And their parents are like, Yeah, he's our kid, and he was born blind. And now he sees it. We don't know what happened, but he's old enough. He's a man. Ask him yourself. These words spake his parents, because they feared the Jews, for the Jews had agreed that if any man did confess that he was Christ, he should be put out of the synagogue. Therefore they said his parents, He is of age, ask him. Then again called they the man that was blind, and said unto him, Give God the praise. We know that this man is a sinner. And he answered and said, Whether he be a sinner or no, I know not. One thing I know, that whereas I was blind, and now I see. Then said they unto him again, What did he to thee? How opened he thine eyes? And he answered them, I have told you already, and you did not hear. Wherefore would you hear again? Will you also be his disciples? And the man answered and said unto them, Why, herein is a marvelous thing, that you know not from whence he is, and yet he hath opened mine eyes. So I just think that was a kind of a neat story to end with before our main verse here, because, because they were just grilling this guy, and his family, wanting to know, did they think Jesus was the Son of God and all that, and he's like, all I know is that I was blind. This guy put clay on my eyes, told me to wash. I washed, and I see. And that was pretty much the end of it for him, Then it wraps up with Jesus meeting back with the blind guy and kind of tells them about him being the Son of God. But this is the main part I wanted to kind of bring to y'all today. Hope I enjoyed this story. There's so much more that Jesus healing. This video will probably be pretty long as it is, but Jesus did some awesome stuff. I like how in the book of John it says that If everything that Jesus did was recorded, the world couldn't contain the books. That's just an awesome thing to know just how awesome Jesus is. And he could heal us today just like he did then. So if you need healing, seek him for it. You know, he is our healer. He paid for our healing with the straps on his back. And if you need healing, go to him. I love y'all, and God bless y'all. Y'all have a great week, and I can't wait to see what the Lord wants me to share with y'all next week. Until then, y'all just have a great week. And if you need healing, then, seek Jesus. Seek God for it, because Jesus paid for our healing. And he's able to do it. There's nothing too big for our God. Nothing's impossible with him.